Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Still working on this whole podcast. I guess this thing, and it's still a work in progress. Welcome to Mina Mashkiki Wobble Blackwater Medicine Podcast. My name is Meligard, and this is the podcast show. That for quite a while I've been wanting to talk about this particular subject. So without further ado, let's go follow a bit of protocol. Put some smudge on because we talk about things in a good way. And while we do this, spirits. Ooh. I said before I wanted to talk about this particular subject, and as you guys seen earlier in the introduction, there was a post that I put it way back in I think 2016. I think this was posted in 2016, and one of the now how did I came around this post? This is the topic that everybody sort of came up with, not really came up with. And now, I had one of my dreams, really, really strong, powerful vision, and I'm trying to remember this, and because it's been quite a while. But what I do remember about this particular vision is that these women came out of the mist, all kinds of women. And I remember seeing my grandmother coming up from this with this thing too as well. And I remember seeing like warriors, real warriors. I sat there and I was kind of like pretty pretty spooked by this. But what I did see though in the end of this whole visionary dream that I had was a very large drum, and I remember them carrying this drum. It was a very big drum, and so this was the drum that was given to the men. I remember thinking to myself after the dream. So I posted this thing that there's going to come a time when women will reclaim the big drum. Now, a lot of people say, well, they'll say this is taboo. This can't be real. This cannot be. And yet, 2024, we're starting to see a variety of women drums forming. Women groups out there are forming these big drum groups. Slowly, small. And so the reason for that is that and I have to say this quite honestly. I don't mean no disrespect, but I think women are just tired of it. They're just tired of it. They're just tired of all these different things that happen to them. And so missing murdered women happened. I don't know more happened. You know, the grassroots movement happened. All through women. As you begin to see and notice quite a bit in your various places and towns, a lot of women are very good at getting together and forming conferences. It is very, very interesting how a lot of these conferences are. And so they get together and they do these things. And so anyways, I'm going to show you a little clip that I put together. Now, I didn't have the rights to actually use these cartoons and AI pictures because you gotta have rights to these things. And as I began to look through a lot of them, you know, the statements of women in all these forms, you know, even sexuality, for example, comes in everything. And so, as I said before, you know, women has this way of getting together because they themselves, deep within the roots of who they are, other than mothers, they're hunters and gatherers as well. And so this will lead to the people that made who I am. Is that I was raised with women. I was raised with women since day one. You know, my Gokum, she was very, very strong in the spirit. She was very strong in the wisdom. She was very strong in the bush. She kept up with a lot of our customs and traditions and feeding and everything that she gave us. And so being raised by women was quite honestly a privilege. Of course I was a real big brat. Got away with so much stuff as a kid because that's how I was back then. But moving on, women big drum groups out there are forming. They are coming too. And so here's what I want to talk about. Are they a threat? Are they a threat? A lot of people over the many, many years who've done drum groups and stuff like that will say, you know, they have their place. They have their place and stuff like that. And you see them quite a bit in the powwows where they're basically singing as backups singers and stuff like that, and then they have protocols in place where women have their movements, stuff like that. But at any time you can take a look at these things, you'll see a small shift. You know, um, where these water carriers nowadays are taking the front action of changing things. And so when you start seeing this action, so a lot of the things begin to start developing. It's really kind of to a point where now it's really interesting. Give me for a second. This is Blackwater, my coffee. Um, and so when you start thinking about all these um changes, you start seeing a lot of women taking the front action of a lot of different things. The grassroots movements, um, they're no longer part of the kitchen. They're part of the front end, the spear tips. And so, they're out protesting. They're out. They're educating. They're out there doing everything. And when I began to think about that post, I gotta say, in a lot of ways, and I remember when I first started getting involved with a lot of different things back then. I was lucky enough to get involved with the missing murdered women's movement in Thunder Bay when I first got here, and I began to hear the stories of women, um, and the missing murdered, and I thought to myself, that's pretty sad because we men kind of forgot about how to take care of our women in a lot of different ways. I mean, um, that's why I put the post in there. Viewer discretion is advised because this is not meant for lighthearted talk. This is meant for serious talks, and this is a pretty sensitive subject. I have a lot of friends in the power community, so I always listen to them and talk to them and stuff like that, and hear what they say, and small handful of them do agree with the fact that there should be women drum groups forming. Um, so moving on, there last summer I think it was there was a two-spirit powwow where it was in a park, and of all things you would get to see in the middle of this, there was a two-spirit drum that was there, and women were singing it. What I was looking at was the men looking at this drum because it was a two-spirit event. You know, they basically kind of sort of like, I'm not going to say nothing, you know, but in the private circles, um, out there, you can hear them say they didn't like it because their thing, and yeah, I don't understand that because with the women out there who are doing what they're doing, um, getting together and forming conferences and stuff like that and gatherings and stuff. Do the men feel threatened at the fact that this is the new thing? Are we going to see more women drum groups in the university powwows and the gatherings and the gatherings everywhere? Will they be welcomed or will they be shunned? Um, and I quite honestly think yes and no. Like yes and no. Um, in their own private circles, a lot of these men and young men, they'll say they're that, it could be about time. It could be doing this, but a lot of women, believe it or not, want to have these groups forming, you know, and they want to have more. instead of backup singers, they want to be in the middle of that singing. Because in the back of their mind, they sort of had enough of things. They really did. They really sort of got tired of it. And so now, the Ikwe's out there are forming. They're forming their army. They're forming their troops, their generals, their commanders, their warriors, because they want to make these things happen. And so these women drum groups across Turtle Island is happening. It is really happening. You wouldn't think it would happen, but it is. If you Google, women drum groups, you'll start seeing these things. And so, of course, you're going to see articles from the CBC that was part of the I can find again. These are happening. This is what's happening right now, and this is just one of many groups that are forming. I'm quite excited about this. To tell you the truth, I really am. This changes the entire landscape of powwow country. It really does. If you look at every powwow event, men groups everywhere. But can you imagine there's going to be one day a women's group that's coming and they're singing, instead of hand drums, big drums. Now that's pretty radical. Pretty radical. And wow. Just wow. I just had to sit back and think about this. This might upset some of you guys. They're really good. Like my little things here. But if you guys want to, go ahead, start your own podcast. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just think it's pretty amazing that this is going to be the show. This is going to be the show. Women drum groups forming across the Turtle Island. Then they're going to be forming their women's drum group powwow. Whoa. Whoa. Holy. I gotta raise that feather. Gotta raise that feather. Women's powwow. Just women's only. Can you see that? Can you see that? A women's powwow? All these women drum groups getting together and they're singing? And then the men will be doing backup? Wow. Why? Because I think the landscape is changing. It's time for this change. It really is. I just got goosebumps just thinking about that. I'm gonna be an old man one day and coming to these gatherings, and then they're gonna see these women groups with this good strong voices in their names, and they're gonna say, "Yeah, I had to change this." Big drum groups competition is the thing. Is it sexism? Is it sexism? Is it the isms of any of it? Is it isms? And is there going to be a point where where men have to look at themselves and say, did we do what we were supposed to do with this? Not too long ago, there was a visitor in Thunder Bay where they talked about he had this very conversation. I think he posted something about this this particular subject about women drum groups and stuff like that, and wish I got permission to quote it, but I can't. But it was the same similar type of quote that I would have, that this is about to happen in the reality of it all. And quite honestly, we have a lot of good, strong women in our community in Thunder Bay here to really promote the women drum movement. It really is. But it's going to take time. I quite honestly, it does take a lot of time. I mean, this is why a lot of guys practice their songs, practice their protocol, practice. Um, because men, in a lot of ways, are organized in this fashion. This is their thing. They get together on a random day and they go out there and they sing their songs together and they go with it. And then the day happens where they go to the powwow and they bring out the drums and so on, and then they sing it. And so that's the step up that the women um, need to have with this formation of drum groups, because not every song is the same. Every song is different. Girl hop songs different. Introduction songs are different. Veterans, they're all different. Um, they they will learn it. They will learn how to do these songs, and they will eventually get the protocol going on. And they will see that this is one of the practice gets good. Yes. No. A couple of months ago, um, some women contacted me through Facebook, and they wanted my input because, of course, I put some stuff on Facebook on my comments about stuff, and they asked me to meet up with them, and I said, sure, okay. And lo and behold, um, there's a group that is forming in our city who is getting together, and this is what's so sad about my life. Sometimes 9 to 5 really takes up my 9 to 5, because they went to get together and I was supposed to be there, and of course I couldn't because working. adult adult life. And anyway, so lo and behold, this group is forming, and they're getting together, and they're starting that, and I encourage them to really do this. I I I I I'm willing to see them opening up with their group in these gatherings, and in these asking, instead of singing with hand drums, they're gonna bring their drum and they're gonna sing. Now here's where I'm gonna put a little bit of shiver up your spine. What if you make a drum dedicated to missing murder women? A red drum for missing murder women, big drum. What if you put together an Every Child Matters drum, hosted by women? Like, can you imagine how powerful that drum will be when you have a missing murder women and a Every Child Matters drum? Isn't that something to think about for 1 second? Like, wow, that is just just seeing something like that entering Powell country with the introduction of the Ikwe's and their big drums. Just just to sit there and think about how this is going to happen, why it's going to be such an amazing thing. Just wow. I'm looking forward to this. I really am. Just to sit there, the reality of Turtle Island changing this way, where the Equays have their own drums, their drum groups, their own songs. Of course, you're going to be hearing them singing. Like, that's just one of the best things about that. I ended on also thinking to myself, like, how big this idea really is. You know, you can go around with your groups and hang out there and talk, and they'll say, "Did you hear Mel's post about this? Did you see his stupid little podcast about this?" And he has a point. He has a point, and that's the point. And I guarantee you, you know what? It's not taboo. This is not taboo. This is the reality of women forming together and warrior classing it all. A warrior class. I said once before, um, there's no warriors today. There's not. There isn't any warriors today, and I remember mentioning that some time back ago. Um, and here's the examples. Okay, here's an example. Here's a perfect example of what a warrior really is. It reminded me so much to go moose hunting. He always goes moose hunting and back in the day, and he would get the big moose that he wants. And of course, my uncles and families would get together, and they would cut the moose up and stuff like that. And they would only take their little piece of moose meat. But my grandmother, she would say, come on over and pick up your moose meat. And everybody always knew to come to our house and our campsites and our trap lines for moose because they would give it all away. Everything would be gone. Everything would be gone, right? Moose meat would be shared with everybody because not everybody is a hunter back then. Not everybody could hunt. But my uncles and my grandfathers knew that people out there needed food. So when they would go moose hunting, they would feed the community. Okay, now when I say warrior, this is what I mean. Today's moose hunters today are filling up their fridges, their stoves, and everything else, and they're not sharing. They're just feeding themselves. Can you imagine a moose this size, like big, and they're keeping all that in their freezer? And you practically got to beg for a moose meat from these people? This is happening. This is a normal thing because selfishness is the thing. That's why today, when I always say it, and I'll say it again, there's no warriors today. There's none. There's none. Today, you got men abandoning their children. You got today women going through more crisis with interventions and mental health problems and all these other different things. That's why I always put that disclaimer. Your discretion is advised. If this is triggering you, by all means, go get the help that you need to get done. I just think to myself, like when I say warrior class, when women are warriors, things do get done. Things do get done when they are warriors, and they are. You see them in marches. You see them talking about things. You see them changing the landscape. And so when women gave the big drum to us men for responsibility and ownership to stop us from going to war with one another, that's the original story from what I was told as a kid. But we now have forgotten this idea, and now we're singing for money. We're singing for just for. That's not what gatherings are for. You know, when I used to think about how some of those old timers would talk about, I Paul back in the day is not the same as this today. It really meant that. It really meant that. Today's different. Today's more about competition, ego, than it is spirit connecting with you know, the spirit, the ancestors, the real deal. And yeah, that's the norm. You can sit there and say all you want. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't do these things. This is why I personally don't go to gatherings anymore. I decide not to go to gatherings anymore because the great teachings that I received from my elders, said that if you're going to go to celebrate on yourself, celebrate with yourself. It's you in the spirit itself. I mean, you can take all the cool stuff you want, but it's just between you and God, how you communicate with God. And I had this teaching called dead songs, singing nothing but dead songs, singing just to air. Sorry about that. Real spirit out there is about giving and really honoring those ancestors, really honoring your grandmother and your aunt and those who have passed on. And I say, it's something that has to go through its motion. I'll talk about that later on. But For now, we're sticking to the subject of the women's big drum movement. It's coming. It is a long time coming, and I really am welcoming this. In again, in again, because I am one day gonna walk down. I will actually come back to Powell Country to these drum groups when the women having these drum groups. That's the only reason why I will come back. When I see women drum groups in these circles, I will gladly put my assignment down there right next to it and say, "Hey, look, honor, honor." Um, I would hear these stories about the original stories of the drum, and I'd always kind of wonder whether or not people out there really know what it's all about to really do. I think it's quite honorable, to sing with the drums. That I know I've known friends of mine who've been doing it for a long, long time, and they're very good at it. They're very, very knowledgeable at that. I would sit there and think. Actually, I had a kind of conversation with a relations of mine, and he says to me, "You know, all these young guys are singing these songs, right? They're posting it on social media sites, but some of these songs are sacred. They're not meant to be recorded." I was like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, you're never supposed to record certain songs. Certain songs are only meant for ceremonies, and here they are, and drumming it, singing it, singing it, recording it, and putting it out there." And I was like, he's been singing for a long time, this guy. And when he said to me, he's like, he heard this guy posting this song. He said, "Rip." Annoyed. He was mad. Um, he was right. He said that we kind of forgot. And I hope, he said, I hope about these group forms. And of course, and then he says to me, he said, "You're taking a lot of, hey, I'm going on. I'm going on. Sorry about that. Going on. I want to make this a longer podcast. I'd go on talking forever for this thing, but I think right now is just the start of it. Start of this subject, and I will come back with this subject again later on when I figure out how to put an interview piece with this, because I would love to interview people. I haven't figured that out yet. I still need more stuff for this thing. That's why my audio sounds okay, but my mixing it is not that great. But like I said, um, the day is coming that women are getting these drum groups together, and they will sing. And I am coming back when that happens. I will gladly set foot in these power groups. Sit with that drum. Because you know why? When I was a kid growing up, I sat with my grandmother talking about life. That's exactly what the big drum group itself. They're not singing dead songs, they're singing real songs. That's why I'll gladly sit right next to them and say, "Hey, come on, your your drum is coming. You, we need this more than anything else. We need the men to change. We need children to change. We need it because of this drum group. This there, especially murder women drum groups out there. Every child matters drum groups out there because we need them." You just have to think about that, right? It just brings a tear to my eye just thinking about it, because it's like, wow, wow, about time. And I will gladly see other guys out there. Holy gee, put my feather right next to you. Hey, welcome, sister. Welcome, sister. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that kind of somewhat of an amazing thing? That there's gonna come a time when you'll see these women come around there and just sitting there with you guys. Just sitting there, just a thing with you guys. Unity. That's exactly what this is all about. Unity. And I I'm not going against anybody's teachings with these things as well. I really don't. I just the evolution is coming and it is forming. And women will not be backup singers, but they will be right there with the men, right alongside them, singing just like this, because they need that. They need that sisterhood, that brotherhood. That's honest brotherhood right there. Brotherhood, sisterhood. Right? But now we have the situation where they'll say this is taboo. This that little taste in the back of their mouth. Some of those guys out there will not accept this. They will fight this. They'll talk among one another about this type of thing, and they will not welcome it because they're stuck in that mindset. That's not what I was taught, they'll say. Oh, this is the age of teachings, right? That's where people come up with stuff. But no, the original stories are that women gave the big drum to men for responsibility and ownership. This is the original story. This is no matter what part of Turtle Island you're from. This is what one of the big things they are. And so women, as I said before, they're going to change the landscape of this. And for you men out there who don't agree with this, great. It's going to happen. And you're on the train or you're not. If you're not on the train, the station is way back there somewhere. Because it has to. This thing has to come through. This is something that I said that I came a vision maybe 2016 that I seen these women coming out of the mist carrying that drum. 2 other women. Those visions are strong because those ancestors and those elders of mine told me you listen to the spirits and they'll show you things that you will not believe, and that's just one of the things. We are connecting, we're reconnecting, we are doing what we are doing as Nishnabek people to gathering our languages, to getting our land back through the treaties. We are now making sure that these things happen. The young generation and now is picking up where those elders, hid. This is the change that our Turtle Island is needing badly. Healing, legitimate healing, and it will happen. I have to really drink my coffee because it's not cold. It's just the fact that it's inspiring vision of things happening. I'm gonna be around for that. Just yeah. So as I said before, I really am I'm excited for these type of things, and the Ikwe's who are starting these drum groups out there in secret right now, but are coming out. It will happen. And by all means, comment on these things because your voices are just as important as anything else. And I was gonna say something, but I better not because I'm gonna save it up for another time. But anyways, I want to thank you guys for this this discussion here about women drum groups, and just to make you guys think for a minute that this is happening and this is on the rise. As I said before, these subjects that I'm covering, viewer discretion is advised. If you're triggered, by all means, seek what you need to do for your healing, because it is. Future podcasts will be about false elders. Future podcasts will be about selling of our culture, and many other subjects that should be covered and will be covered. Mama pay, my friends.